Hello you fans, Metalfoes here, and welcome to an in-depth deck profile with Metalfoes. Metalfoes are a strong competitive pendulum deck that has access to Magic Spectre Currents, Cyber Dragon Infinity, Totem Bird, Ignis of Prominence, and a whole host of other strong monsters that are based on specific archetypes, such as Baxia, Tree Toad, and Cosmo Dart Destroyer. This deck definitely got really not the most painful hits with Kieran to 1, but it's certainly going to push them to a more uncomfortable position. You have to use your Kieran now sparingly, and the ABC matchup is going to be a lot harder since Kieran can't just quickly bounce it back to the extra deck on their turn, so they won't get as much plus from having that monster on the board. They'll just get one banish, which can be a bit of a pain. But the deck survived, and the deck will continue to be meta in the upcoming formats. This video will be discussing the main deck, the extra deck, the possible side options you can do in the upcoming formats, then discussing the upgrades that the Invasion of Venom booster will unfold, and then the possible archetypes you can run alongside to get more out of them. And then finally go on to some testing of the hands, see how consistent the deck is, and then finally the meta matchups and the possible balance hits in the future. So let's start with the main deck. First we have triple Metalfoes Volflame. Metalfoes Volflame is a level 7 scale 8 that's searchable through Summoner's Art, which is quite nice. It's only used at maximum if you're running a Cleafort engine alongside it. If you aren't, then you don't have to run 3, you can run 2, it can work still quite effectively there. I prefer 3 just because I want that scale 8, I don't want to break with loads of low scales like you did with Magicians pre-Monkey Board? Not pre-Monkey Board, can't remember the support that came out. Yeah, pre-Sky Iris with Unicorn, which was painful, but they survived. So I prefer scale 8 at maximum instead of bricking with less of those. Then we have triple Gold Driver. Gold Driver is painful decision searchable and is usually used in scale for me personally, but if you have Lust of Pendulum, obviously you'll need to have one on the board to access Ignis of Prominence with that. Other than that, he really doesn't give any more value to the deck other than being a scale. You can make him 1900, he's a 1900 beat stick, but that's about it. Silverbird has more synergy level wise. Triple Silverbird because, again, Painful Decision takes one of those out of the deck as well as adding one, so we need to use triple on a low scale, and it's got more level synergy, so more likely to be on the board than being scale. And then we have triple Metalfoes Stealing Ring, because Stealing is a scale 8 and it's searchable through Painful Decision, so that is quite nice indeed. All of them have the generic scale ability of you can target one other face-up card on the field, destroy it, and set one Metalfoes spell trap from your deck, directly from your deck I should say, which is where the synergy with other archetypes like Yang Zing and Shadol are coming into play, because that basically gives you plus from that destruction, and with pendulums they can easily access this power because they're going to the extra deck, you're not getting any minus from this, and they can fuel their plays from that way onwards, which is very nice. Then we have the Cleafort engine. Cleafort engine is just Monolith and Scout to bring out Cyber Dragon Infinity. You pay 800 in scale, search a Monolith, activate a Metalfoes scale, pops the Scout, then Pendulum summon them out, overlay for Infinity, which is quite simple. Searchable through Summoner's Art, so that can be easily done on turn 1. And yeah, that's about it. If you break with Monolith, it's a little worse now than it will be in the future, since Monolith is a normal monster, and you'll be able to fusion summon with that to make him full Metalfoes Alcahest. Then we have one Focus Cannon, an alternative to the Volflame, has a scale 2, which is quite nice. It also has the ability to pop a face-up spell trap during the end phase of the turn it's activated, which is Also a bit decent, but you don't need to use that effect, to be honest. One Luster Pendulum. This is to give me another copy of a card I already have in the deck. Pretty much standard in Pendulum decks. I wasn't using this pre-Kirin because I just didn't have the room, but now we have spaces. Luster Pendulum is very much viable in the deck. It also gives you access to Ignis to Prominence. Then one Kirin and triple Bumbuku. Bumbuku can be played at 3 very easily, giving you access to Kirin more rapidly than you would with 2, because Bumbuku can search itself, which is something people sometimes forget, that Bumbuku can search itself after you search the Kirin, so you can get that Totem Bird access, which is pretty nice indeed. It's also a scale 5 that can allow you to bend something out Unicorn or Volflame if you have a scale 8 on board, which is also alright, but really you were using him to search out another Kirin for scale 2, which you can't unfortunately do that. Kirin is a staple in more or less every Pendulum deck at the moment because it's for ladies, and very broken. It wouldn't be limited if it wasn't. And then a new member of this deck is a Morphage Sloth. I'm currently using it as a tech as a one-of at the moment because there isn't 100% a lot of decks that are using the extra deck at the vast majority. There's a lot of Cyber Angel hype at the moment, so that's causing a little bit of less usage with Sloth, but it can be quite effective against other Metalfoes users, Burning Abyss and Yangzing Metalfoes, which are a lot of rampancy at the moment, being a quite decent deck at the moment, even without Denglong, which is quite nice. So Morphage Sloth is quite fine at being a one-of at the moment, and it's a scale 3, so you can put in scale as well. Then we have 2 Archetype Eccentric. This is a scale 7, which basically gives you access to Unicorn if you don't have your scale 8, and it can be used as an MST or a Man-Eater Bug essentially, which is nice, and you can pendulum bounce it back with Kirin, which is also quite good. Then we have triple Speedrow Terratop and 1 Takenborg. This is as an aggressive engine and an unbrick engine. Aggressively, it can be used to out anti-spell fragrance, a killing card against this deck, as it will be able to overlay these two into a Break Sword or a Gramples, depending on what you have in your hand. But to unbrick with it, you just go into Gramples, pop the combination that you've set on your board, and that gives you the repellent scale that you need, which can be very nice. If you don't have those two situations in hand, you can use it to summon out a Totem Bird, which is negate one spell trap by detaching 2 materials, which is also quite decent indeed. And then finally, for the monster lineup, we have 2 Vortex Trooper. This can unbrick you by shuffling back your, most likely your Metalfoes spells and traps that you more or less draw on, because for some reason, every time I play this deck, I more or less open it with 1 or 2 of them, which is really annoying. It's like having 2 Veils in deck and drawing 2 of them, which is also annoying. So that can put them back, possibly draw into something decent. It's also a wind attribute monster, so you can special summon Takenborg, alongside like Bumbuku can also be special summoning Takenborg on the board, and overlay for something like Totem Bird, and when it's destroyed you get to draw 1 card. So if you don't want to shuffle back some cards, you can just pen something out, destroy with a scale, and get a draw from that, which is also quite nice indeed. So that is the monster lineup. We got the spells, we got 1 Metalfoes Fusion. You only need 1 in the deck because it shuffles itself back in infinite amount of times, only once per turn, to draw a card, and it's your fusion spells, you can activate it as many times as you like. So it's very nice at 1. You don't need multiple because that clogs. Metalfoes is already at 4 targets clogs, so you're gonna get fusion too much if you're using it as a 2-of instead. Then we have 2 Painful Decisions. Painful Decision has a hard once per turn, so you can't really use 3 of them, but 2 does work quite effectively. It searches out your any scales, to be fair, such that you have 2 targets for scale 1 and you have 1 target for scale 8, which is very nice. The only downside is it sends 1 of the monsters from your deck to the graveyard that you added, which can be a bit of an annoyance. But with Metalfoes' Mithril coming out in the TCG in November, you'll be able to put this back into your deck, which can be very nice indeed. Then triple summons that, this searches out Scout, and searches out Volflame, which is great. You want to play 3 of these because you have a lot of targets for this, and you want to see Scout as early as possible. Then part 2, part Desires. You don't have to run this, but it does speed up the deck a lot, and you have a lot of free ofs, so after you've searched out your one-offs, most likely setting the Metalfoes Fusion. If you have this in hand and you are going to use it this turn, you do set your Fusion as soon as possible before using this card, because you can't, if you banish it, you've hurt your engine dramatically. So always set that, and this could give you the cards you need. I know I've top decked this once or twice before, and unbricked my situation, all came back, and it was really nice feeling to do that. And then for other Metalfoes targets, we have one counter. This adds back your Metalfoes from your extra deck to your hand, and touch someone from the deck when a card is destroyed, which is also very nice. And then 2 combination to unbrick you, which can also be very helpful. You hardly ever use the fusion side of things in this particular moment in time. And next we have the XYZ lineup. So we have 1 Ground Pulse, this is to unbrickers generally, 1 Totem Bird as a control factor, 1 Break Sword for anti-spell fragrance, also popping your combination gets a search, so that could be very nice indeed, 1 Nightmare Shark to go for game, because it can attack directly, 1 Acid Golem. Acid Golem came up quite a lot of times, because sometimes you need that 3k beat stick to do enough damage for game. It also has the ability to run over Majesty's Fiend, which can be an annoying thing to go against. Then 1 Abyss Dweller, this is just against Burning Abyss, Castell, Spot Removal, Cyber Dragon Infinity and Nova, because Infinity is Quasar, and that is very easy to make in this deck. And then 1 Big Eye to snatch steal away their monsters, which can also be very nice indeed. Then we got Ignista. It's great against pendulums. It's mainly Brawl against pendulums, to be fair. Although I don't run a Master Pendulum to go alongside this, it still gets enough plus in this deck, because you can just pop off something like a scale like before your Pendulum Summon, or after your Pendulum Summon, or a monster before your Pendulum Summon, to shuffle back a card your opponent controls doesn't target, which can be very good indeed. Then we have 1 Dynastar. For the moment when you open up with Luster on your turn 1, but don't want to go into Ignista, summoning Dynastar and Ignista and then overlaying for Titanic Galaxy isn't really a play I like, to be honest, because of the fact that you only have 1 Ignista and you have no other recovery for that. If you had an Omega in the deck, yeah, you can make an argument for it, but if you don't, then it's not really worth it, to be honest. If you're going to do that, go for 2 Dynastars instead. Dynastar can also revive Lost Pendulum if it's sent to the graveyard, but that really won't happen. You're really just using it for defense for your scales and your unicorn. And then the Metalfoes fusion targets. 1 Adamante as a generic fusion, which can be very nice if you don't have 2 Metalfoes that you're going to fusion summon with. And then 2 Ori Hulks, because it's double piercing damage and can target a card when it is sent from the field to the graveyard and destroy it, which can out Floodgates, which is also very nice indeed. I use 2 because of the fact that I've needed it more at 2 than I have at 1. To be honest, needed more at 2. Yeah, that was actually where I thought to consider it. Onto the side options for this upcoming format. So we have a Morphish Sloth. Morphish Sloth is brilliant against any deck that's XYZ summoning, fusion summoning, or synchro summoning, or even pendulum summoning for that matter. Great against AVC. You summon this on turn 1. They can't out that. Well, not from my knowledge at least. Probably a Regeki or a Solemn Strike on your summon of this is the only way they can out Sloth, and if it's turn 1, it's really not going to be outed. They have to Regeki this, or side something specifically to out Sloth, which can be absolutely brilliant. And against Burning Abyss being an annoyance because of the fact that it just floats. If it didn't float, then obviously it wouldn't be an annoyance. Then there's the alternative, which is Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is getting a lot more play in the UCG at the moment, even in Metalfoes, because it's just Vanity's Fiend. It's something that's not going to be killed by a Twin Twister, and can just control a board. After you summon your Kirin, after you summon Samurai Infinity, you don't need to summon anymore as long as they can't be outed. Mantis Fiend is going to stop quite a lot of those outs because main deck outs are probably going to be XYZ based, like Utopia Lightning to run over the Samurai Infinity. Mantis Fiend will be on the board, so you can't summon that, which can be very nice indeed. The only downside is it's not Pendulum, so if you can dead draw this and not have a scale that you need. Whereas Kirin was always a scale 2, so that always helped. Then there is Kaijus. The main one you would use is Kumungus because it's the weakest level 7 and can be Pendulum summoned out. It also has synergy with Big Eye, so that's quite decent. It outs Meta Threats, which is very good. Then Veiler, standard hand trap at the moment. Maxi, again, standard hand trap, now at 2, but also Retaliating Sea. This card is going to get a lot more hype in the upcoming formats as Dark Lord will be introduced around November area or December. And this card is very good against that. It's also very good against Cyber Angel and Necros. When a player would activate a spell card that has the effect to special summon a monster, you can special summon this card from the hand. And then while it's in play, it's Macrocosmos, which is very nice because their Herald summon is not going to give you back their Benton, so they have less materials to use with that. If they're trying to summon out a monster from the graveyard with their Altar, they're going to lose other cards that they may need later. That Altar's getting banished as well, so that's not something you can reuse, which can be very nice. And the main benefit from this card in this deck is that when it's sent to from the field to the graveyard through most likely popping it, because you won't want it continuously, you just want it for a stun for a turn, you can search out Max C, which is very, very good. It's just a shame there's not many spell cards that are actually special summoning that are in the meta at the moment. If we get into a format where more or less everything is special summoning for a spell card, Retaliating Sea becomes one broken side deck card. Then there is System Down. System Down is great against ABC and Cosmo. You can't really say any more about that. Or Despots if you have those at your locals. Then Mask Restrict. Monarchs are still there, they're still quite rampant around. They're not going to top as much, but they're always going to be a problematic threat. The main Monarch particularly will be very brutal, and Mask Restrict will stop that. It's also very good against something like Cyber Angels, which are getting so much hype at the moment that Mask Restrict can easily out that position. Then we have the possible changes that the deck will gain in the upcoming formats, and that is from Invasion of Venom, and it is the inclusion of rare Metalfoes, Bismagia, and full Metalfoes fusion. Bismagia is an alternative scale 8 that has the ability to search out a Metalfoe when it is destroyed by battle card effect during the end phase, which is like Negatama in Magic Spectres, which is quite nice. It gives you an alternative scale 8 that you can use, and it's also level 1, so if you use YgoPro in your deck, you can sync with this card to make Metalfoes Horus, and that can pretty much screw up your opponents because of the fact that Metalfoes Horus doesn't target for its Snatch Steal, which can be very nice. Snatch Steal is the one that we were thinking of. I thought I got that wrong with the Monsters Fed now. It has the ability to Snatch Steal and negate a effect on the board permanently, which can also be very nice. So that's a little bit of synergy there Bismagia you can get from Gofu, but also it can be summoned out through Mephriel from your extra deck, which is also very nice. Since it's level 1, you can't Pendulum summon out, which is the downside of this card. And then we have full Metalfoes Fusion. Quick play fusion spells, so you can do it on your opponent's turn and summon out Alkahest on their board on their turn. Snatch Steal a Pokemon, not Pokemon, Snatch Steal one of their monsters, and that can be very painful for them. Although it usually gets Twin Twisted when I play it, which is a shame. You only use one combination at this point because Mithril can put them back in the deck, so you don't need to run any more than one of each, which is very nice indeed. If you didn't have Mithril, you'd have to run either one less of this or run this in conjunction with the current 4 engine, which can be very painful indeed. At this point I've dropped Combination and Sloth. Sloth is going to be probably their net side deck because they want the space for it. Then the extra deck changes, I drop Nightmare Shark, Abyss Dweller, Adamante, and Orihulk. Orihulk you only need one at that point because you can play back into your extra deck. Adamante you already have more generic cards, so you don't need any more. Abyss Dweller you don't bring it out as much, and Nightmare Shark again don't bring it out as much. And to put that in perspective, we get 4 new fusion monsters. 2 Metalfoes Mithril, 2 cycle themselves back like that goes to Emerald does, and 2 full Metalfoes Alcahest, which are 1000 I restrict on your opponent's turn. And it's a quick play, so it's absolutely broken as hell. It's a very, very good control card, and it basically makes any hand that's just full Metalfoes into a decent hand. Previous to this, that was a brick, you just have a little bit of a wall. Instead now, we have a control factor. Alongside with Kirin or Cyberknight Infinity, this can be very painful for your opponent. This is what I will be updating the deck into in the upcoming format, although I will probably still be playing Metalfoes IRL, because I do adore Metalfoes. If any of you guys want an in-depth deck profile on that, please do let me know in the comments below. So onto the possible engines you can run alongside this. Currently the Yang engine is one of the more favoured engines because of the fact that its boards can be Titanic Galaxy, Crystal Wing, and Zephyr Strike, and that's very tempting for a lot of players. Although this is a glass cannon because of the fact that Veiler is very ramped in the TCG, and so is Max C, and that can really hinder your progress. Not to mention, if you're going second, you can be subject to stuff like Solemn Warning, you can be subject to Damn Magical Circle if you're playing against Damn Magicians, you can banish that, and there is a lot of negation in the game that can just crack that cannon and shatter it all over the place. Which is probably why you won't see many Metalfoes topping until Denlong. Although Denlong does improve the situation, it doesn't make them too meta. They'll still be more rogue meta. They don't top much in the UCG, which shows how painful the deck can be if it's facing something like negation. Then there is the Ariadne form. Ariadne is a decent card. The only problem I've had with it is that it bricks with the strikes. Drawing those trap cards is worse than drawing your Metalfoes targets, because your Metalfoes targets can progress your plays later on in the duel. Your strikes only stun, but that's taking a life one chunk out of you, and it's not progressing your state. So it's not as profitable to have Ariadne in the deck, although you can sign into the engine pretty effectively. Then we have the Cosmo engine. I've tested this, it's more bricky. You can make Cyberknight Infinity quite easily, but that's about it. It doesn't give you the major boards that Viking Cosmo does. And you can brick easier with the ships if you don't have enough pilots. And if you don't have enough pilots, you probably have to put more in, and then you'll brick with the pilots itself, which can be very painful indeed. Although Cosmo Type 3 does allow tinkering with that deck quite effectively. Then there's Mist Valley Apex Avion, or maybe even Ninjas if you like to go down that route, but particularly for Apex Avion, this is like Fantasy Fiend, very good, but it's not a scale, so it causes consistency issues, unlike Amorphe Sloth. Then there is Shaddoll. This is a pretty decent one, it's more of a fun version of the deck. It has the ability to get all the power plays of Shaddolls off, except Construct, Missed That Bay. But all of them trigger through Metalfoes Destruction, and you can bring out Window, which is still a very good control card. It's more of a fun deck. I'll give a link to that deck in the description below. And then there is Fortune Ladies. This is also again a fun deck that's aka Tross made, which is quite nice. You pop the Lady Light to summon out a Lady Fire, and that can burn your opponent, or burn your opponent by destroying one of their monsters. Or you can destroy it into water, and then water special draws 2 cards if you have a Fortune Lady on your board when it's special summoned, which is quite nice indeed, and it gives you Hammer Shark access for True Toad. So that's also some synergy there, and power and control that you can have. But again, it's a fun deck, and it won't be really that competitive. Again, a link will be to that in the description below. And then finally there's Metalfoes. I do love my Metalfoes. I'll be updating the deck in the upcoming weeks. Just getting some material at the moment, which is a bit laggy at this point because YgoPro is a bit bad, and then a lot of rage quitting comes when you play Tree Toad. But the deck does have a lot of synergy with Metalfoes. It brings out a big control monster like Kirin, but it also gets its plus from DupeFrog. If you have Scale and the DupeFrog, you're getting Swap Frog and most likely Tree Toad in that turn, because popping DupeFrog while on the board can allow you to search out Swap Frog, which is pretty nice indeed. Although if you synchro summon with DupeFrog, it does miss timing. I've checked this out, there is a rule on that, which is a shame. But it's a very good deadly archetype to incorporate with Metalfoes, and something I've personally enjoyed quite a lot. So yeah, this is currently the main deck and extra deck. I will be going on to some hand testing as of now. And now onto some testing. So this is to show the consistency of the deck and the power it can have on its turn 1 plays. Although there's not many things I can really show with this, it's just showing you what the deck can really do. So this is already a really good hand. Ignoring the combination, I could have done Infinity and Kirin on my turn 1 because I had summons that, and that means I could search for Scout. Scout then can search for Monolith, pay 8 Feel Great, and go grab me the Monolith on the board. So this is a completely dead II. It's mainly because of the fact that if I was going against an IRL player, it would cause a lot of issues and would take like an extra hour onto this video, which can be very painful indeed. So I prefer to go against an AI for testing hands. Unfortunately, Dueling Network is not available. If it was, then we would definitely be doing it on there, because that's the best place to actually test your hands. So go and use Silverbird, pop the other part of the Silverbird in scale, set the other combination, activate the Volflame, Pendulum Shogun, summoning all monsters on the board, and go for my Scout on scale, my Monolith, and my Silver, and my Unicorn. So assuming this was turn 1, I wouldn't be attacking obviously, I'll be overlaying here for my Infinity, because Infinity is great if you have access to it, although sometimes outclassed by something like Tree Toad. So that's a turn 1 board of Unicorn Kirin in defense mode, in attack mode, not in attack mode, I don't know why I switched it to attack mode, and a Infinity with 3 back row, which can be very nice. Well, 2 back row. The third one is drawn, which is a bit of an annoyance, but it happens so commonly in this deck now. There's no way of cutting down targets, because if you do, you hinder your plays later on the duel, so we have to run 4, which is a shame. On to the next duel. And we shall be going first again. I prefer to go first with this deck, just because it is very much control based, which is quite nice. So we've got a good hand and it's so-so here. I'm not sure exactly why I like in this hand. So let's start this off with Bumboku. Gets search for Bumboku again, Luster Pendulum, and the Volflame's effect, pop the Bumboku, set the fusion out deck so I can use Pot of Desires, use Luster Pendulum's effect to destroy it, get a search. And then we can use our Pot of Desires to see what we're going to use. And we get a Monolith. That is painful indeed. And we banish off all Vortex Troopers and another target, which can be painful, but it's also plussing if you have the situation at hand. So let's go Volflame. Volflame can pop the Luster Pendulum in scale to set a counter onto the board, and I can either use Kirin here, or I can go for something other than that. I can go for Bumboku and just pen summon out Kirin and Volflame, which is all decent because I already have a combination. And I think I would actually go for this. I would go for the Bumboku, I would Pendulum Summon out too in defense, and set the combination because I can pop in the combination next turn and get the search for my other scale. The alternative to this was playing Kirin in scale, summoning out Luster Pendulum, fusing with the Bumboku to bring out Dynastor, having defense for the skills, which is alright, but I'd rather have Kirin access over that. On to the next hand. which is, it was a decent hand. I wouldn't say it's the worst hand you can get. There's a lot worse hands you can get, but certainly decent. So here we have a Terratop, a Bumbuku, a Scout, a Summoner's Art, and a Desires with a combination. We're going to ignore the combination, obviously, because who doesn't want to ignore that? So we're going to get Summoner's Art. We're going to search out for the Scale 8 that we need. We're then going to special summon the Terratop. This is going to search it out as Attackenborg, which is also very plussing there. Special Shokin, overlay Grand Pulse, because we're going to be doing stuff with that. Summon it in defense, because it is obviously Grand Pulse. Normal summon Boboku, search out the Kirin, and then we can go for Scout. Scout can pay 8 and feel great, and grab the Monolith out of the deck. Then we can just use Full Flame, pop the Scout, and that will set a combination from the deck, which is very nice. We can then use Grand Pulse to ditch one of those, pop the combination then searches out another scale, which would be the scale 1 that we'd want at this point. So we already got Kirin there live, which is pretty nice. But let's also put that on the board, because of the fact that we are going to be using Desires, we need to get the Fusion out of the deck. Now we can freely use the Desires, draw 2 more cards, which is pretty decent cards. Then we can Venom Summon. So we're going to have Kirin, we're going to have the Monolith, we're going to have the Scout, and then we're going to have a Bumbuku in defense. If we didn't have the Grand Pulse on the board, or the Infinity Access, we would have had a Totem Bird alongside this. But unfortunately we do, and there's nothing we can really do with that. But an opening of Infinity and Unicorn with pretty nice trap card access is pretty okay. I can work with that. This is more of an optimal turn 1 board, I would say. And the cards we banished weren't too bad. We banished 6 scales, which can be a bit of an annoyance, but if you're going to keep up with this meta in the current meta, we need to use the Desires. Next is a Duel. So that's another board that we've opened up quite good. We've opened up with an Infinity and a Bumbuku. Not Bumbuku, a Kirin. So this is the more adverse side of things. If we draw a Luster Pendulum alongside something that we can't really use to much benefit. So we'll go for Luster Pendulum here. We're going to go for Volflame. Luster Pendulum ability, pop the Volflame, get another Volflame. Then activate the Volflame, use this effect, destroy the Luster Pendulum, set the fusion, and see what luck we can get from Pawn Desires. And we get a Vortex Trooper, that could be very nice. And we have a live Painful Decision, so that's even better. But did we banish the Kirin? With Kirin at 1, it gets a little bit more painful to use this, but this time we have not banished it, which is great. We also banished the Pawn Desires, which is also good because you don't want to use 2 in the same duel. So banishing that is a decent thing indeed. We have a normal summon at this point, so we can shuffle back these cards because we don't need them to get another draw support here. So put these back, draw 2, my luck, and then use Gold Driver, pop the Vortex, set the combination, Vortex, draw 1 card, get the exact same 2 cards that you shuffle back into the deck. You know, it happens, it very much happens. But I wouldn't say this isn't too bad. This is at least getting a lot of deck fins. You know there's a Kirin in there, and I believe, actually I think they've gone, yeah, there's no access to Cyber Infinity, but you've got some setup, so that's decent for what it is with Kirin at 1. So I've got Fusion, Combination, and a counter. Very nice. Centric for next plays, Luster Pendulum for a possible play with Ignista after touching probably Serum or popping the Gold Driver, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Kirin probably comes eventually. Next hand. Probably going to be the last hand because we don't want to make this video too long. And yeah, that's basically all I can show with the deck. You can't really show anything more because of the fact that there isn't really anything else to show. really isn't. So yeah, special summon Teratop, search out Takenborg, and the thing is, with this hand, I don't get much plus because I don't have many of the scales. I only have one Centric Archfiend. We did draw into the other gold driver, so we will use it in the sense to pop it and get the combination out. But if we're going first turn, we would have to pop the Centric Archfiend, which wouldn't be very profitable at all. So select Ramples, use his ability, destroy, and get a search for the other scale. So the scale 8 I would want is a Volflame, because Volflame is better and easier searching at the moment. Managed to hit, did it hit the Kirin? Did it hit the Kirin? Oh, I hit the Kirin. But it isn't the worst hand. This isn't the worst hand at all. But this is the problem you use with Desires. And the only problem is we have to use it. If we had a better draw support than this, we would definitely use it over this. But unfortunately, we don't. We really don't. We have Ignite Reload, but I don't feel that's really too good at the moment. So let's summon 2 Bumbahoos and a Gold Driver. Then we overlay Fraternity Bird. So that's alright. The fact that we banished the Kirin now was quite painful. I don't know why I've activated that, so I'll just stop it there because, yeah, that was obviously wasn't supposed to be activated. But yeah, you get the drift. It's consistent, but there's always things that can be painful, like Pot Desires. Onto the meta matchups. And now onto the meta matchups. So there are 12 meta matchups this deck has to comprehend with, and they vary from quite easy to quite fiendishly hard. So the easiest matchups I would say are the Perforpal matchup, the Mirror match itself, the Burning Abyss matchup, and the Extratic Monarch matchup. Perforpals, their base strength would be relying on Ignista Prominence and Ariadne and Unicorn Kirin. Ariadne and some strikes you can bait out. The Kirin can be run over by Volflame, and Ignista Prominence is only one of them. You can out that with a Centric Archfiend or something like that. It shouldn't be too hard. Plus, you have a main decked Morphage Sloth, so that can easily overcome them because they will be something from the extra deck, which can be very painful indeed. Then we have the Metalfoes Mirror Match. This is just a grind game, just hoping you get enough support to basically overwhelm your opponents. Kirin at 1 can be a bit of an annoyance, but a Morphage Sloth would definitely help with this. Then there's Burning Abyss. Kirin again kills, bouncing back there's Dante's and Beatrice before they get too much plus off, and a Morphage Sloth again, main deck, so very powerful against that. Same again for extra deck Monarch. Stormfire at 1 means they're more reliant on the extra deck, a Morphage Sloth screws that over. And also Unicorn Kirin can bounce back the trap cards to the hand, so you have to either reset or rediscard, and since Pantheism is at 1 now, they can't get into the graveyard as easy as they have been able to in the past. And you can bounce it back as Zulkin when it's summoned as well, so that's quite easy to overcome. Then onto the medium matchups, I would class Dark Lord, the Frog matchup, Cyber Angels, and Blue Eyes as the more or less medium matchups. First being Dark Lord. Dark Lord basically is Vantis Fiend Turbo. You just discard a special summon, and then Vantis Fiend. That's it. You don't do anything more with that deck, to be honest. Maybe Titanic Galaxy as well, alongside this, but that's about it. But Vantis Fiend can easily be out in this deck in the form of a Centric Archfiend. Just tribute it, pop. And that is Vantis Fiend gone. No more need to be on that, to be honest. Vantis Fiend is good, but there's so many outs to it in the TCG over than the OCG. That's why it's probably more successful in the OCG, because they don't have Regeki, and they have Dark Hole at 1. Then there is the Tree Toad matchup, which is going to be Hero Tree Toads or Tree Toads just in turbo form. Or if it's mixing with something else, like Metal Frogs. It can be a bit of an issue, but Tree Toad can be run over by Volflame. And that's the plus from this. You just run it over. Don't trigger it, run it over, and you should be fine. Although if it's alongside heroes, obviously that's going to be a bit of an issue. But you can fusion summon for Orihulk and pop then destroy the Dark Lord if you want to do that over Tree Toad. It just depends on the situation at hand. Pen summoning isn't too bad against this Tree Toad, as long as you have the skills in play before the Tree Toad's on the board. Then we have Cyber Angels. Cyber Angels got a lot of negation, but they're more brickier than they usually appear. So you hope to get into control before that, or just open up with Kieran and you should be all fine. Because Heroic Perfection can't destroy Kieran, it's just an oncoming threat that just keeps bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and provides a lot of strength for you to play with. So you can survive that matchup quite easily. And then finally, the Blue Eyes matchup. Because Blue Eyes with Spirit Dragon can be very annoying, but you can have this again with Eccentric Archfiend or Kieran or turn 1 the Mortgage Sloth, although it's not as strong in this matchup than it has been in other matchups. So I don't see that as too painful a position to go against. Then the 4 hard decks. This is ABC, Cosmo, Domain Monarch, and Dark Synchro. ABC is one of the worst because of the fact that it banishes off your cards, and it's quick play, and it's not really hurt too much by a Cyber Dragon Infinity. You can run it over. It's definitely killed by a Mortgage Sloth. Main decking that is very good. Signing into it is even better because they can't play, because they don't have outs to this, except from Kaijus or Regeki, which could be very perfect against this. But if they get on the board with that, they can start causing a lot of issues, and that is not profitable at all. Then there is Cosmo. Outing a Dark or a Dark Planet is very hard in this deck. You would have to go into Utopia Lightning, which is on the extra deck at the moment, or Ignis of Prominence, and that's only at 1, so that can be run over, and then how are you going to out it now? You just have to wall up and hope for the best. Which is a shame, but yeah, it's Cosmo. Then we have Domain Monarch. Domain Monarch is, again, very deadly. They still have the consistency. It's not as consistent as it once was, but if they get the Domain lockout, you have to out with Eccentric Archfiend or you lose, because you can't out it any other route. And they really should have just put this at 1, then the Domain Monarch matchup would be just dead. But they kept it at 3, and they kept degeneracy in the game again. Oh, there's also Demise, but if you're clever, you can get around Demise. You just don't pen some mass. You just try and out their back row slowly and grind away until you're in a position where you can strike and kill them. Which is, I would say that's a medium matchup. And finally, Dark Synchro. Hand Loop, you can't really top deck except from Potter's Eyes in this deck. And if you do top deck, it's really not going to be anything you can really do with, which is a shame. So Dark Synchro would kill you if it gets off. And then finally the manless hits. So the hits in the future, most likely for this deck, I don't think the Metalfoes engine itself will get hits. Unless it's Alcast, because Alcast is a really powerful card. If they were to hit a Metalfoes card, it would have to ban Fusion. Hitting it to 1 is pointless, because you only use it 1. They would have to ban this, which would be a shame because it's a really good card, but it's highly unlikely to happen anyway. Kieran, most likely on the next ban list, is going to be banned, so we'd have to use an alternative engine to the Magic Vectors. This would allow you more access to frogs, which would be very nice indeed, and I think that would probably be the only hits in the future. Maybe Summoner's Art in the future, or Cyber Dragon Infinity, just because it's usable in so many decks, but other than that, this deck is going to get more or less no other hits, which is going to be very nice for this deck in the upcoming format. So thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe if you enjoyed this and want to see further content. Please leave your comments below, just from the deck, just from the channel in general. The next in-depth profile will be with Ritual Beast, as that's been requested a few times. I am working on Metalfoes at the moment, and will most likely have something up with Dark Magician again, with the new Apprentice Illusion Magician in the upcoming days. So thank you for watching. Madarant, signing out.